Hello, my friends. This is Logan Jacob recording on a Sunday morning where I actually have the day off from my church gig, which is kind of nice. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time this morning talking about the Suare plugin. I had a request on the comments of YouTube and on my Facebook page to check it out and see what I could do with it. I've spent a little bit of time with it, and I've found what I think is the most fun thing to do with it. But there's a bunch of stuff you can do. I'm not going to do a deep dive into it. I'm just going to kind of show you how I would set it up and how I use it with Fugue Machine. And you can also use it with Axon 2 and things like that. So first off, Suare plugin is a basically it's all Indian style drums and other instruments. Indian as in from India, Indian. The default one that it comes with for in the 99-cent app is the tabla, which is really cool, and it actually has its own sequencer built in. When you come over here, if you hit play, it'll play through some of the little sequences that it has. It sounds good. It's a good sounding sample, and it's got some interesting sequences in there, and you can set it up to your own tempo and just add it into whatever you want. It's some really great sounding stuff. But of course, we want to use it in AUM and have a little bit of fun with it. So this is what I ended up coming up with, and the coolest sound that I ended up finding, which you heard there at the beginning of this video. So first off, by the way, this is an in-app audio. They don't have an AU for it yet, which I find a little bit irritating, but I'm also fairly new to this. I came in to the iPad music scene after AUs were already pretty popular, so I don't like using in-app audio. I find it to be a little bit janky. That's actually one of the reasons why I don't use Animoog very much, because they don't have an AU available for it yet, and I don't like having to deal with in-app audio that much. But it's okay. It works pretty well. This one is pretty stable, and it works just fine for our purposes. You've probably discovered by now that with in-app audio, it's a good idea to have the app already open. So I've opened it already. You can see when I double-click the home button that the app is open, and that just helps with loading, especially with Final Touch. Final Touch, I have never been able to get to load through AUM. It's always had to load first and then turn on the in-app audio to get it to load. I may just be something about in-app audio that I'm not aware of, but it works a lot better if you already have the app open. Okay, so I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go to in-app audio, and I'm going to scroll all the way down. Yes, I have too many plugins, and I'm going to go to SWARPlug. Okay, now, because it's me, and you guys know I'm obsessed with Fugue Machine, I found that using it with Fugue Machine is really cool. But first, when I was first messing with it, I wanted to figure out how the MIDI worked, like what was going on with it. That's not what I meant to click on. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to open up the keyboard, and I'm going to tell the keyboard to run, to go into Suare plugin. So what I did was I just kind of played around with the keys to figure out what sounds were mapped where. And it looks like, from what I can tell, I think it was from about C3 down, and I'll double check that. From C2 up through the third octave, all the way up to B4 is just kind of normal different, the different ways that you hit the drum, which all have their own syllables. I don't know all that stuff. I'm not a percussionist. But you can hear all the different sounds that you get. And when you hit to C5, and above that, you start getting some more interesting articulations in there, especially starting about F5. Even kind of doing its own little fills in there. And then about B5 is where we stop. So these last few have extra little things in there. So that's quite a range of articulations that we have available. I gotta move that out of the way so I can turn that off. And at first I tried using Axon and kind of plugging it in that way and adjusting the MIDI outputs of Axon. And it was able to get some pretty cool sounds. But I'm a fan of randomness. I like the computer to kind of decide what it's going to do. And I found that using it with Fugue Machine was just a lot of fun. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to tell Fugue Machine all playheads are going to go into the Suare plugin. And I'm going to solo my voice first so that you can hear me after I solo this. Oh, by the way, I do have all of my instruments going into mix bus A, so I'm going to remember to do that this time. There we go, so that Final Touch is processing it. So I'm going to solo that, which automatically solos the mix bus that it's attached to. Now in Fugue Machine, this is not an original. I just went to the presets, and this is one of the ones that Alexander made. Alexander's a super nice guy, by the way. I've emailed back and forth with him a couple times, and he's very responsive, great developer, doing some really cool work. So I'm using the preset Alexander Knot Minimal. It's just a very simple quarter notes, 4/4 note preset. I don't even know what key we're in. I'm assuming that we're in C minor. So we've got, it looks like the notes would be C, F, A flat, and then a low C. Okay, a little bit of a cut there just to give you guys a heads up. The Final Touch was apparently acting up, and it kept turning off my sound and crashing AUM. So I'm back. I have turned that off. So where we were was that I have everything run in. I'm just going to mute those two channels so you can only hear the Suare plugin and my voice. I've got everything going, just the built-in plugin from Fugue Machine. And I'm going to hit play and see how it sounds. And honestly, that's really cool. That's a nice little groove by itself. And you can really kind of play around with it a little bit and have some fun. You know, if you wanted to add in more of a triplet feel to one of these or something. Let's do... You can hear a little bit of that extra little triplet groove on top there. Bring the octave down on that one and see how it sounds. So it's really cool to just get some of these extra little sounds in there. And of course, Fugue Machine does a great job of creating interesting polyrhythms. Axon 2 does a great job of that as well. The setup for Axon 2 is a little bit jankier though. I may play around with running it through Scalar or something. So I like that group. That's really cool. And I wanted to find some voices that would complement that really well. So I am fairly new to Aparillo, so I opened that up and I just ran all of the Fugue voices into it and started playing around trying to find sounds that I thought would complement that tabla sound very well. And I like that one because it almost sounds kind of like a sitar anyway, or at least like a warped kind of nightmare sitar with almost a percussive vibe to it. And when I played that, man, I just think that's such a cool sound. And I could, if I was going to do something with it, I would probably record in for this to move around. To kind of evolve and warp the sound a little bit, but for these purposes I'm not going to. You can do all that stuff on your own. So this is the Doc Mallet preset, which I believe is under the percussive section. The only thing I felt was missing from this was some bass. So I again went into Aparillo, I found a good bass sound that I was happy with, and just ran playhead 2 into this instance to give us that kind of pad warmth bass sound. And that's super cool by itself. And then we add in the tabla. And I think the tabla just adds so much. Now I'm going to play around a little bit, if you don't mind. I'm going to put a little bit of reverb on my tabla sound. I keep forgetting that I have to leave my voice unmuted so that you can hear me. Thank you guys for bearing with me. That's an awfully wet sounding reverb. Ooh, I like that one. Yeah, that's cool. We can maybe even add a little bit of delay to add to the complexity just a little bit. If you wanted to get fun with it, you know, you could throw in some a little bit of overdrive or something, the perforator or something, just to give it kind of an almost remixed feel. My trusty random button in Cosmonaut. If you've been watching my videos for a little while, you've learned that I'm a big fan of randomness, and I do like to kind of let Cosmonaut decide what the delay is going to sound like. Yeah, that's kind of a nice feel. It is with just the pad. And again, the pad is coming from Playhead 2, which is the kind of pinkish one there. And then we bring back in our main synth. And that just grooves, man. I don't know about you guys, but I love it. As you know, I'm 36, and I think most 36-year-old dudes that are into weird music are fans of Tool, and that has a real Tool vibe to it. The polyrhythmic ideas, with the creepy kind of pads. I mean, throw some Maynard vocals over the top of it, and I think it would be great. But it's cool by itself, even if you don't throw in a bunch of awesome guitar stuff. It would always be better if we had Danny Carey playing along with us, but, you know, there's only so much we can do. So anyway, that's my experiment with a Suare plugin. I'll keep messing with it, and if I come up with cool stuff, I'll throw out another video. If you have any specific questions about it, shoot me an email or comment on the video, or whatever you want to do on Facebook or anything, and I'll see if I can figure out what it is that you're wanting to do. I haven't bought the other plugins yet. All of the other instruments you have to pay for, which is I'm not crazy about that model, but they are really good voices. So if you're creating this kind of music, if you want that kind of Indian Eastern feel to it, there's a lot of really cool stuff. I mean, drums I've never heard of in here. There's a sitar voice. There's actually some guitar stuff in there. All kinds of cool stuff. If you're really into that, you can buy those individually, whatever sounds you want, or you can pay $100 and get the full thing. That's a little bit pricey for me. I'm probably not going to do that. But the tabla sound is fantastic, and you do have some controls here to play around with the sound a little bit to get it exactly how you want it. So keep playing with it, and send me your stuff. I find me on Facebook, the Logan Jacob Electronic Music, and post videos on there. I'd love to check out what you guys are doing. I love going through and watching all the videos from the iPad musicians groups, and the stuff that Todd and Jamie and Doug and all of you guys are doing is fantastic, and I would love to see more of it. So feel free to put it out there. I am certainly not an expert, and you guys seem to be enjoying my stuff, so we'll probably like your stuff too. All right, guys, thank you very much. Please do all the YouTube stuff, like and subscribe. I'll let it fade out with a little bit of music here, and have a wonderful rest of the weekend.